Women of Reddit share their craziest stories. Please subscribe to support our channel. Story 1. I'm a 35-year-old commercial pilot. Brown hair, 6 feet tall, keep myself in decent shape. I do okay with women, but honestly, I'm on the road so much that when I'm home, the last thing I feel like doing is heading out to chase dates. So last week I had this flight to Texas. Before boarding even started, I noticed her. You know that instant double-take moment? That was it. Late 30s, business trip energy, nice glasses, hair pulled up in that effortless way that makes you think she has a million things going on but still looks incredible. The tattoos peeking from under her sweater didn't hurt either. I was very happy to see her seat assignment, first class. It gave me a legit excuse to check on passengers before we even left the gate. I kept it simple, asked how she was doing, and told her I'd try to get her to Texas quickly and safely. She smiled, and there was something in her eyes right then that made my stomach drop in the best way. Midway through the flight, I went out again for a little chat. She asked what I was planning on doing once we landed. I joked about something aviation folks call a slam click. Basically, when we get to the hotel and lock ourselves in the room until the next report time. She smirked and said, maybe I could help break up the tedium. My pilot brain was on autopilot by then. I could feel the chemistry clicking into place. We swapped numbers. That evening we met at the hotel bar. She dressed up a little, and I'll admit, it threw me for a second. Seeing her outside of the plane, out of that context, it was like the shift from work world to real world hit hard. She laughed when I said that. Teased about how different I looked out of uniform too. The vibe was already locked in. 15 minutes later, we were upstairs. Let's just say the spark didn't fizzle. The connection was quick, fun, and honestly intense. Hours blurred into each other, some laughing, some talking, and plenty of no words needed. Every time I thought the night had peaked, it just kind of started up again. Eventually there was room service, some dozing off, more talking, and, yeah, we definitely made the most out of the short layover. By the time she had to leave, it felt like we'd written a whole story in one night. A different kind of slam click, you could say. And look, do I have a little fantasy about flight attendants? Sure. But I keep it professional with my crew. Business and pleasure don't mix well in the sky. Still, I won't lie, running into someone like her. That was one of those unreal layover stories pilots tell each other, but this time, it was mine. Story 2. Recently, I moved into a new apartment. I had been searching for a while, and this place really checked all the boxes. Great commute, quiet neighborhood, easy to settle into. On move-in day, I met my new roommate properly for the first time. We'd crossed paths once before when I was touring, but this time we actually had conversations. She came across as nice, maybe even a little reserved at first. She helped me unpack, set things up, and move things around the apartment, which gave us plenty of time to talk. At first, we were polite and surface level, but before long we realized we shared a few hobbies. Both of us liked running, and surprisingly, we played some of the same video games too. Bit by bit, the walls came down, and our roommate dynamic shifted into something that felt more like an unexpected friendship. It stayed casual, but there was this undercurrent I couldn't quite put my finger on. After about a week, I started noticing things. Sounds mostly faint, muffled late at night. At first I thought I was imagining it, but it kept happening. Quiet buzzing, small sighs, little noises carrying through the walls. It wasn't constant, but when it did happen, it was hard to ignore. And if I'm honest, it made my mind wander more than once. One night, though, things played out differently. Let's just say it was a little louder than usual. I was already restless and couldn't sleep, and those sounds didn't make it easier. Then all of a sudden silence, and my door creaked. She stepped in, just for a moment, looking a little flustered when she realized, and she quickly apologized and slipped back out. I sat there stunned, not sure what to think. A few minutes later, my phone lit up. It was a message from her. Sorry, I should have knocked. I reassured her it was fine, and it somehow broke the ice. What could have been awkward turned into us joking about it through messages. Then she dropped one I wasn't expecting at all. To be honest, I was kind of in the same situation. I stared at the screen, not entirely sure how to react. It was surprising, but also honest, and strangely intriguing. The conversation flowed into laughter, teasing, and then a suggestion. Maybe this is something we should share instead of tiptoe around? What happened after that wasn't overly planned. It just unfolded. At first through the walls, light knocks, the timing of little pauses like we were syncing up without even being in the same room. The air between us was electric, even from separate spaces. Then later that night, she came back into my room, no shyness this time. The energy was so different. It wasn't just about tension or curiosity anymore. It turned into this playful rhythm, where we almost treated it like a game of pushing and pulling, edging and pausing, learning each other's timing. We were laughing, kissing, fumbling, and for hours it felt like we were both caught in the same current, neither really wanting to let it end. Eventually it did, of course. But instead of being weird or uncomfortable afterwards, we lay around together just talking, laughing at how ridiculous and unexpected it all was. What started as a random, almost accidental moment became this strange but fun little connection. I'd been searching for a decent apartment. Turns out I got that, and maybe the best possible roommate bonus I could have imagined. Story 3. Back in college, right around the time Tinder first started blowing up, I matched with this gorgeous Cuban girl. Her profile was full of poetry quotes, like dozens of them, so I broke the ice by teasing her about being secretly Shakespeare. She shot a joke back, quick and clever, and from there we just went back and forth nonstop. Eventually, I asked if she wanted to meet up. I told her up front I wasn't expecting anything serious, just wanted to hang. A minute later she replied, "I was wondering when you'd grow the guts to ask." That confidence, yeah, I was instantly hooked. We set a date. I don't know what possessed me, but I decided to be bold. I teased her with a challenge before we met. Sent it, regretted it immediately, and figured I might have scared her off. Hours later I got one word back. Okay. That set my nerves on fire. I'd never looked forward to a first date so much. The day comes. She walks in and wow. She had this wavy hair tied to the side, golden skin, and these striking clear eyes. Her style wasn't over the top, she didn't need it. She had this tiny black skirt on that looked like it was made for her. I hugged her, and for some reason the confidence just kicked back in. She smirked at me, gave me this look, and right there I knew the night was going to be different. Dinner was hilarious. We absolutely roasted each other from start to finish. Playful digs, inside jokes forming instantly, innuendos flying back and forth like it was nothing. At one point, we were tucked into this half-circle booth, and she leaned in so close I forgot there was anyone else in the restaurant. The tension was electric the entire night. After dinner, we decided to walk around campus. I'd let her walk a few steps ahead, just so I could admire the way that skirt moved, and she definitely caught me looking because she'd glance back with this mischievous grin. Twice, she flashed me just enough to make sure I knew she was in control of the vibe. By then, all logic had left me. I was completely gone for her. We ended up in one of the classroom buildings. I had night classes there, so I knew it stayed unlocked pretty late, and we ducked inside mostly to keep talking someplace quiet. But the second the doors shut behind us, it shifted completely. We couldn't even make it to the stairwell without kissing. The elevator ride up. Let's just say we weren't staring at the floor numbers. Inside the classroom, it was like pure adrenaline mixed with curiosity. We laughed just as much as we got caught up in the moment. It was chaotic, a little reckless, and exactly what college nights are supposed to be. For hours it was back and forth energy, teasing, pulling apart, diving right back in. Time flew by until suddenly we noticed how late it had gotten. At one point, we even thought someone was about to walk in, a janitor maybe. We froze, quietly trying not to laugh, that guilty thrill when you're caught somewhere you know you shouldn't be. That moment is actually the one I remember most vividly. Pressed together, stifling laughs while the footsteps passed outside the door. We eventually pulled ourselves together, still joking like nothing happened. When she went to the restroom to freshen up, I sat outside in the hallway smiling like an idiot. She came back, flopped dramatically across my lap, and whispered, "My brain feels like mush." We cracked up, kissed again, and finally called it a night. Story 4. I'm 29, and last weekend my sister's husband was over at the house. At one point I caught him giving me this quick little glance, like he thought I didn't notice. But yeah, I definitely noticed. Those yoga pants betray me every time. It wasn't creepy exactly, more like one of those sneaky double takes that people think they can get away with. Later that night, everyone had gone to bed, the house completely quiet. But I heard someone moving around in the hallway, soft steps, like pacing. My room door was cracked just slightly open, and my heart was beating fast for no reason, like I already knew who it was. For some reason, I got this wild urge to test the waters just to see. The air in the room felt charged. I shifted under the blankets, letting the silence work for me, feeling every sound in the hall amplify the tension. I let out the slightest little noise, barely anything, but enough that if you were paying attention, you'd know. My chest was pounding. It felt risky and wrong, with my sister just upstairs, but that only made my nerves fire hotter. Afterward, lying there, I could almost feel the rush buzzing through my legs. I didn't even move, just listened to the silence return to the house, wondering if he'd lingered by the door. The next morning over breakfast, things were weird. He was fumbling his coffee cup, avoiding direct eye contact, stumbling over words like he'd rehearsed a conversation in his head that never made it out. I sipped my coffee and kept quiet, but inside I couldn't ignore that spark. And now I keep thinking about it, how the quiet tension made the walls feel thin. How just the smallest crack of a door made everything feel amplified. It's wrong, and I know it's messy, but my brain keeps wandering back to that hallway. And I keep wondering what would happen if the house got quiet like that again tonight. Story 5. I'm honestly still kind of mind-blown over this whole situation. A few months back, I, 41M, went to a birthday party for my friend's daughter, who was turning 21. Now, I've been close with her dad since we were fresh out of college, so this was just another family-style gathering, nothing strange about it. We were hanging out, catching up, and she was doing her birthday thing with friends and gifts. At one point she gets to mine, a coat I'd picked out with a couple accessories to go with it. She loved it, genuinely, even called it out across the table, and told me she'd send me pictures once she styled it. I raised my glass and joked, "Happy birthday, baby girl," not thinking anything of it in the moment. A couple weeks later, I get a text from her. She asks if I'm busy. I'm not, so she sends a picture of herself in the coat and asks what I think. It looks amazing, so I say so, and she mentions she needs the right boots to complete the outfit. I tell her we can make it happen, that if I'm buying the coat, we may as well finish the whole look. She's already got a pair in mind, and sends me a photo. Without hesitation, I send her money to pick them up. She's hyped, thanks me, and promises I'll see photos when they come in. Sure enough, a few days later, my phone's lighting up with outfit pics, complete with emojis and hearts. I compliment her, she plays back, we laugh a lot. Pretty soon, she's sending me selfies, day-to-day pics, jokes, random life updates. We start having these long conversations, sometimes light-hearted, sometimes a little more personal. Looking back, the tone started sliding toward flirty, without me even noticing at first. Then last night, out of nowhere, we hung out before I had to head to work. She's telling me a funny story about her group chat, how she had been sharing some of her new outfits with her girlfriends, and they hyped her up way too much, saying wild stuff about how good her body looked and teasing her to send spicier photos. So she actually did, just for fun, and they all lost it, turning it into memes and jokes. I laughed with her, but at one point I slipped and said, "Dang, they're lucky." The second it left my mouth, we both cracked up so hard I thought the moment would just fade into a joke. But later that night, after I clocked in at work, my phone buzzed again. And this time her message just read, "Why not? It's just you." Before I could even wrap my head around what she meant, my phone completely blew up. Notification after notification, photos, selfies, playful shots, all kinds of content just pouring in. My jaw literally dropped. I didn't know how to respond at first. It was shocking, overwhelming, flattering, and honestly, I was speechless. Now, I can't stop replaying it in my head. It started so casual, a gift, some texts, a little banter, and out of nowhere, the whole thing flipped upside down. I'm still trying to process how quickly the vibe went from lighthearted and silly to something much deeper and way more complicated. Story 6. I'm still kind of blown away about this. Recently I learned that a girl I dated years ago still has a video of us on her phone. Back when we were in our early 20s, we dated for about a year, and we were both really into taking pictures and videos together. Nothing crazy to us at the time. We jokingly called them photo shoots, whenever her roommate wasn't around. Over time, it evolved from artsy photos into more playful videos, and it was honestly so much fun. Usually I'd bring my camera and set it up, but one day I forgot it. She wanted to film anyway, so she suggested using her phone. I didn't think much of it in the moment. We recorded something, it was personal, private, and that was that. Fast forward to now. The other day she messaged me out of the blue on social media, just asking how things had been. We chatted for a while, catching up, and then she randomly brought up those old photo shoots. She laughed about how much she liked being the model in them. I told her of course I deleted all that stuff after we broke up, because that just felt like the respectful thing to do. That's when she admitted she hadn't deleted everything. At first I thought she was just being sentimental, like she held on to it just to remember what we looked like back in our early 20s. But the way she worded it made me pause. It wasn't I liked checking it out back then, it was I like watching it. Present tense. Which means she still does. I teased her about it, asking how she'd even know if she hadn't looked at it in years. She hesitated a second, then confessed. She actually watches it sometimes. She tried to save face by saying it was mostly because she liked how she looked in those days, like a nostalgic photo album. But come on. I know better. What surprised me most was, instead of being upset about her keeping it, I actually thought back to that day of filming and remembered how fun it was. How unusual, even a little bit thrilling. The lighting, the way she played up for the camera, her personality coming through. It wasn't just about what we filmed, it was about the energy behind it. When she handed me her phone to record, I still remember the way she looked up at me, smiling, making it clear she was in on the joke, making something meant only for us. That energy stuck with me, and apparently it stuck with her too. It wasn't a long video, maybe 10 minutes or so, but it had this mix of rawness and playfulness that you just don't capture when you're older and overthinking everything. Whenever I'd watch it back then, I'd barely last a few minutes before I'd be thinking less about what was on the screen and more about her. The way she laughed between takes, her little quirks, the way she'd take charge of how things were filmed. And on one occasion, we even watched it together, which was such a surreal experience. It added this weird layer of both embarrassment and intimacy, but in a way that was exciting. It was like being part of our own private inside joke. So to find out all these years later that she still has it, and sometimes revisits it? Wild. And honestly, I can't even blame her. In a way, it's less about the actual content, and more about capturing the version of yourself that only existed in that exact moment in life. Young, fearless, a little reckless, and not realizing how those small things end up sticking with you forever. I don't know, part of me is shocked, part of me is flattered, and part of me is just nostalgic. But yeah, the fact that she still watches it definitely wasn't on my 2024 bingo card. Story 7. So, some time ago I posted about my first massage. Well, I went back for a second appointment. A few days after that first experience, I booked another session with the same masseuse. This time, I wanted to be more prepared. I spent the whole week kind of building myself up mentally, waiting for what was coming. By the time Saturday night rolled around, the anticipation was driving me crazy. I showered, freshened up, got dressed, and headed to the salon. A friendly blonde greeted me at the front, and then my masseuse appeared. The way she smiled at me when our eyes met, it wasn't just professional. It had this playful edge, like she knew something I didn't. She led me to the room, told me to undress and lie down on the table, and then she slipped out. I took my time unbuttoning my shirt and unfastening my belt. I could see her out of the corner of my eye leaning against the chair, watching with this teasing smile. By the time I lay down, covered only with a small towel, my heart was hammering. I didn't know what exactly would happen, but I knew it wasn't going to be ordinary. When she returned, she untied her robe in one smooth motion. It slid away, and suddenly the air in the room felt heavier. I froze. I honestly didn't know what to expect next. She came closer, gently set me down against the pillow, and the warm oil hit my skin moments later. She started with long, careful strokes across my shoulders and back, the warm glide of her palms calming me and electrifying me at the same time. She pressed closer, skin to skin, until every inch of me could feel her movements. Heat built with every push and slide, and I couldn't fight back the tension rising in me. After a while, she whispered in my ear for me to roll over. My body obeyed before my brain caught up. She drizzled more oil into her hands, worked it slowly across my chest and stomach, then let her motions drift lower and lower. Her rhythm had a teasing quality, like she knew exactly how far to go without crossing the line too quickly. Every small sound she made, her breathing, the little hums in her throat, made the room feel more charged. When her hands shifted in just the right way, my whole body jolted with the rush of it. I couldn't help but let small sounds out myself. It was impossible to stay composed. The way she built the pace, slow, deliberate, dragging it out, drove me insane. My muscles tensed, my hips lifted against the air, and I could feel myself getting closer and closer to the edge of that breaking point. I begged her not to stop. She smiled, kept her rhythm steady, and within moments that wave hit me hard. My whole body arched off the table, and I just let myself collapse into the feeling. When I finally opened my eyes again, she was standing there, grinning like she'd just pulled off the ultimate prank. She leaned over, left me with a quick, playful kiss on my cheek, and then giggled her way out of the room. I lay there completely stunned, staring up at the ceiling. Whatever that was, All I know is, this massage spot just became my new guilty pleasure. Story 8. This story is sort of a continuation of my first one about my girlfriend Steph, 29. If you want the whole background, go check that out first, but here's a quick refresher so this makes sense. Back in college, after a night out, her boyfriend at the time talked Steph into having a threesome with him and his roommate. She was hesitant, but agreed under certain boundaries. Things happened that night, but the very next morning her boyfriend regretted it, became territorial, and the relationship didn't last much longer after that. She cut off contact with both him and the roommate pretty quickly. Fast forward a few years. Steph graduates, moves back home, and one night she's swiping on Tinder. Who pops up? The roommate, James. She swipes right, he matches, but she doesn't think too much of it. They just exchange a casual hello, catch up a little, and that's that. Until about 2 weeks later, she actually runs into him at the gym. They finish their workouts, and James asks if she wants to grab a drink and catch up. She agrees. What was supposed to be just a couple of beers turns into laughing, real conversations, a little too many drinks. When they get back outside, standing by her car, James leans in. They kiss. And just like that, all that unresolved tension from years earlier is right back in full force. Things got heated fast. They couldn't keep their hands off one another. She told me later that sitting there in the car, with the doors shut and the world outside, it felt like all that bottled-up history just rushed out. She even admitted that, at first, she wasn't sure she wanted to go any further. But between the chemistry, the drinks, and the flood of memories, she let the moment sweep her up. And here's the thing, it didn't stop there. That kiss by the car was the start of what turned into a 3-month situationship between them. They'd hit the gym together during the week, then park somewhere discreet afterwards to hook up. Sometimes it was a warehouse lot, sometimes back roads, sometimes just her car outside work. They made it fun, playful, even reckless at times. Steph told me eventually, it became like a secret language between them. If she texted him in the middle of the day saying, "I'm wearing a skirt today," he knew exactly what that meant. He'd find a way to meet up during her lunch break, and they'd sneak off together. Since they were both still living with their parents at the time, Car Meet UPS became their spot. But twice they leveled it up, her birthday weekend and the weekend before James moved abroad for work. They booked a hotel, threw responsibility out the window, and basically spent 2 back-to-back weekends indulging in each other until they couldn't anymore. It didn't last. James left the country for a job, and their connection ended with him boarding that plane. But for those 3 months, Steph swears it was some of the most insane chemistry she's ever had with anyone. And honestly, from the way she tells it, I believe her. Story 9. So, my dear friend Jessica really loves my company. But what she loves even more is when I keep her boyfriend company. Yeah, you heard that right. At least once a week, I end up at their place, and let's just say things get interesting with her watching, and sometimes even when she steps out on purpose. Whether it's the thrill of watching her man with someone else, or just seeing me take the spotlight, I honestly think she can't get enough of it. The last time she called me over, she said it was going to be a game night. But trust me, everyone knew exactly what that meant. It's basically just their code word, some harmless cover. You don't exactly put threesome on your family Google Calendar. When I showed up, Jessica was all over me right from the start. She kept finding excuses to touch me, filling my glass, laughing at everything I said, leaning closer and closer on the couch. Before long, her hand was on my thigh, lips brushing against my ear, whispering things she probably wouldn't want written down anywhere. And I could feel her boyfriend staring, amused, waiting to see how far she'd take it. Within minutes, the flirting was plain as day. Jessica loves to tease, and I'll admit, I lean into it too. She had me squirming under her touch, her smile growing with every little reaction she got out of me. There's something about her. It's like she gets a kick out of holding me in suspense until I can't take it anymore. And just when I thought she'd let it go too far, she leaned back with that sly grin and, well, handed things right over to her boyfriend, like she'd been planning it all along. The anticipation, the tension in the air, it was electric. Watching her sit back, eyes locked on us, cheering me on like I was her favorite show, it's honestly one of the wildest feelings I've experienced. She whispered in my ear at one point, soft but firm, "Take it, all of it." That mix of playful command and encouragement sent me completely over the edge. Her voice alone made my whole body tighten and reel. Moments blurred into each other. The rhythm, the heat, the sweat, it all just built higher and higher until I couldn't hold back anymore. I remember crying out, gripping for support, finally letting go while Jessica leaned in beside me, watching everything with that satisfied glimmer in her eyes. The way she looked at me, it was like she was feeding on my reaction, like the whole thing was scripted just to thrill her. When it finally slowed down, she was right there again, kissing me deeply while her boyfriend stepped back, like she was making sure I remembered whose game this really was. And honestly, I'll admit it, she just can't get enough of seeing us together. Story 10. So, my childhood friend and I had a sleepover together recently. We hadn't seen each other in years, so we figured, why not throw it back to old times? Honestly, I was shocked when I saw him. He used to be this skinny little kid who always had an obvious crush on me. But now, he's grown, built, cute, and way more confident than I remembered. One thing led to another, and we ended up pulling out this truth or take a shot game he had. At first, it was silly stuff like, have you ever cheated on a test? Or have you ever stolen something? But pretty quickly, it escalated into some very spicy territory. Then came the moment. He asked, have you ever, done it thinking about someone you know? And instead of me answering, he hesitated, and then admitted he had thought about me. I was shook, like jaw on the floor shocked. I knew he had a crush back in the day, but I didn't realize just how deep it went. He was kind of embarrassed, but also honest. He admitted he'd actually imagined what it would be like if something ever happened between us. Part of me was stunned, and I'll admit, part of me was weirdly flattered. I asked him what he'd imagined, and he actually told me, word for word, some of the daydreams he used to have about me. And let's just say, it was intense hearing that out loud after knowing each other for so long. My face was on fire, but I was also not hating it. Finally, he leaned in and quietly asked, can I kiss you? And in that moment, all the nervousness melted. I said yes, and it started soft, gentle, but the second it happened, the floodgates opened. Years of flirtation, tension, curiosity, it all hit at once. Before I knew it, we were tangled up together on the couch, laughing between kisses, then losing track of where the line even was. The next thing I knew, clothes were definitely not a factor anymore. See no evil monkey. What happened the rest of that night stayed between us, but let's just say, it was a wild blur. Everything from the game, to the confessions, to the way he couldn't believe it was actually happening felt surreal. And yes, it did go exactly where you think it did. The craziest part? The next morning, we both kind of laughed about it. Like, did that actually happen? But at the same time, there was this look between us like, yeah, and we might not be done yet. So yeah, your childhood friend glow up mixed with a late night truth or dare. Dangerous combo. And honestly would recommend.